Happy Saturday morning. That means it is time for Cynthia Hash to open up her notebook and tell us all about what's going on in the world of real estate. The thaw is in. Somebody asked me, they said, really? People buy houses in this time of year? I said, I have it on good authority because you told us last week people do this. How are you
That's
doing this
right.
morning?
Doing good, doing good. I tell you what, I love getting the emails too from your folks and from our listeners. You can use hash at findhomesusa.com if you'd like to continue to email. And Ellen actually had a follow-up with regards to the home and estate planning, and she was saying that one, she's three post-it notes is what
Oh,
her
that's
her
right.
mom.
Yes,
Remember
that's right.
that? Remember?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so she said there was one post-it note for who was going to be the executor, and then there were two post-it notes for the split between the kids. And she said that actually saved them from having to go through probate.
Oh, sure.
Hmm.
And they love to go through, the state loves to put you in probate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they'll.
Because it takes so long and
Mhm.
but what she did disclose was the fact that it was actually attached, like stapled to a multi-paged fill in the blank, like generic document you can get online from, you know, lawyer in a
Lawyer.com.
box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lawyer in a box.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks, Ellen. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's very
Um,
good.
yeah, I have news. We've got the new car market report.
That's
And
right. That's
yes,
it.
we
Quarter
do.
four. This is the end of the year one, right?
Yeah, and so the good news is
Uh-huh.
that we're starting to see some real improvement in regards to stabilization. But sellers don't worry about it. You still have a little control.
Still a little
Um,
bit of a seller's market.
It's still, it's still there. Total home sales, in the nine counties, basically,
Mhm.
uh, you're looking at 10% up year over year. This is
Wow.
fourth quarter market report. Okay. So
Mm.
2024 fourth quarter versus 2025, not bad. It's
Yeah.
10% more home sales. And then median price sale, get this, okay?
Hmm.
Median sales price 464.
Wow.
I'm
It,
sitting I'm sitting here thinking, I remember getting in this business and the median price was $200,000 less than that.
Gee, man, that's
Uh-huh.
a lot. But with interest rates, I know that they've been talking about the Fed chair has been, a big news story lately, and
Yeah,
and the idea of money being available to lend, that's going to help even that out a little
quite a
bit.
bit.
More
I
buyers,
think
right?
so.
Yeah.
We're at like 6.1% now, which I think is helpful. We're getting there.
Hmm.
But here's the thing, what I don't like is when the economy switches on a dime like that.
Hmm.
And when it happens in a heartbeat, then that's when things just seem to fall apart. This has been gradual over the whole year last year. And right now, quite frankly, days on market's only 3 days up. It's 17 days still.
Wow, that's so low.
Yeah, I can remember getting into this when I first got into this business. It was 7 months,
Wow,
and
that's a lot too.
yeah, but 17 days, that's not bad. But year over year, 3 days more.
No.
Okay, so it's not, it don't, sellers don't panic. The spring is still a good time to put your house on the market. Call me now so that we don't have to, so that we're ready.
Well, yeah,
And
that's
then
the thing is if you're in that kind of volatile market, you have to be ready to go. You don't have 6 months to kind of tweak around and think, well, we didn't
that's
have this
right.
right from the start, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So call me now. Active listings, they're about 34% up. So
Wow.
nice increase, but still only 925.
So that's up, but it's still less than 1,000 listings in a nine-county area.
That's exactly right. So it just seems very interesting that
Mm.
that the sellers are panicking. They're not wanting to put their, property on the market, and they shouldn't. Don't think like that.
Mm.
We've still got your back, and it and the if you want to geek out.
Cynthia? Cynthia? Hmm.
You can geek out on this thing. It's like, a couple of dozen pages.
Oh. Hmm.
Oh, did you forget to record? Start
No,
recording?
no, we've been recording. The computer just froze up. Yours did.
I don't know what happened.
Well, you're back now.
You
And
can... My
no,
apologies.
no,
Uh,
no, no worries at all. It's so you were just saying, with reports like this, the car report, you can geek out on this stuff and spend hours going through it, right?
you really can, and that's okay. Go ahead and do that if that helps you with your decision. But give me a call and see if we can't do this together because disseminating some of that information
Yeah.
is probably the toughest thing to do.
Well, it's
So
because it's raw. I mean, it doesn't
yeah,
really give context to anything. It doesn't say, well, this is what this number means. It might say how many months on
right,
how many months of inventory there is, but what does that
right.
mean? That you know that.
That's
Mhm.
exactly right. And so let us help you. Go to findhomesusa.com, click on market reports, and you can also find me there as well as all of our other agents. Um, so let me get into a little something else that
Yeah,
is
sure.
interesting. So, okay. First of all, let's talk about, what is a baby boomer? Okay. A lot of people like, well, I think I am,
Oh,
but
you picked a nit with me. Yeah,
I
everyone.
say,
You see, they
yeah.
lumped me in there because my birth date is the end of 1963.
There you go. And it does lump you in. But but
But I'm not. I mean, neither of my parents were old enough to serve. To me, baby boomer always meant the children of the World War II soldiers.
well, yes and no. I get it because like the birth years are pretty long, but not really. You're looking
Mm.
at 1946 to 1964.
Well, I guess, yeah, but that's
It,
almost 20 years.
it is, but you think about a generation is usually about 30 years.
Yeah,
So,
I guess.
but if you're age, 60 to 79 years old, okay,
Hmm.
and that's where, and all of this, where the origination of this name comes from is the sharp increase in births
Right.
after World War II, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so now we've established who a baby boomer is.
Hmm.
And why are they boomers? Well, because of the high population of babies, coming into the world.
Hmm.
And so there is something that I wanted to discuss about the baby boomers,
Okay.
and that is the fact that, okay, let's just say from 62 to 79. Okay, those baby boomers, they can get, do you remember a week or so ago we had a couple of lenders on that were
Yeah.
reverse mortgage specialists?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Well, the news now today in regards to that is that there's such a thing as a home equity conversion mortgage backed security. Okay.
Mortgage-backed security.
It is. And
Oh.
so it's an HMBS. I don't know what how you would say, like if it's Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, it's
Mhm.
that's easy. Those acronyms are easy to figure out. But the Himbus, I don't know.
So it's a security.
It is. It's a
Oh, okay.
mortgage-backed security now. And so Ginnie Mae is guaranteeing those financial products now. So they're pooling them together with FHA and those insured reverse mortgages, and they're letting the lenders turn these loans into securities to actually sell to investors now. Okay.
So does that increase the availability of them? I gather that's my interpretation of it, but I don't know really anything outside of what I read about finance. If you've created a security out of it, that means there's more money available because you're now looking for investors to invest in this, right?
Liquidity.
Hmm.
That's what it is. It's liquidity for lenders to fund these new reverse mortgages for senior homeowners.
Okay.
Okay. And basically the purpose is to be able to bundle these loans in without them be, into the secondary market. So
Mhm.
if you're bundling those, which has not happened before, it's actually a new thing that and part of the good news is the fact that it didn't used to be where you could, where FHA is saying at this point that the HECM, okay, is the program is no longer a financial risk.
That's good. I think
It,
that's very good.
I think it is. Yeah.
Now, if you couple that, I know Congressman McGuire has this American Dream Act that President Trump is apparently a crazy nuts cuckoo over, which
Yeah.
is a 5-year suspension of capital gains taxes for anyone in that same age group that sells a home
Yes.
to a younger person. So I
And
think you put those two things together, you're really
mhm.
looking at some real opportunities.
I think so too, and I do agree with capital gains being wiped away for anybody selling their own personal home.
Yeah.
Because I think that most people are house poor, if you think about it. I
Mm,
mean, once, like, okay, I paid off my mortgage, but I can't pull that equity out unless I have a home equity line of credit or,
right.
something, similar. And maybe they don't want to do a reverse mortgage, and that's the
Hmm.
HECM thing. And maybe they would prefer not to do that, but that's up to them. But you can use it as a tool, and it can be helpful. Use it like a home equity line of credit. But it ended up being I think this matters because um, the in this endorsement, I guess, is what you
Hmm.
would call it. Basically, it can we haven't it hasn't panned out quite yet to find out whether or not this was a good idea. I
But
think
it
it
sounds like
is.
it's a new one, so
It's a yeah, yeah, and so I think that part of it's new, and I think the capital gains thing, and actually I'm going to go over that and probably I think I've got it probably 4 weeks from now. I'm going to go
okay.
over into that, so because we'll have a little bit more information by then. But I think the good news is that the uh, the product itself can make, I think, a positive market impact because these baby boomers are, they're just the highest population.
Hmm.
And so I think that might be helpful as long as you use it wisely. I don't ever
Oh
want
yeah.
to recommend something that because a lot of people say, I want to leave my house to the kids.
Right.
Well, the kids half the time don't want your house anyway, and so
Have you
I mean,
asked the kids?
have
You
you,
know?
you know. So what you would be doing is basically taking that equity and actually spending it on them.
Sure, you can spend it on them. You
Yeah.
can
Hmm.
make sure you have
Hmm.
an income, a nest egg. I know there have been a
Yeah.
lot of folks talking about, the reverse mortgages. How long? It seems like it's been decades since the first time I heard the phrase reverse mortgage.
Yeah, it has. I think it was like in the 80s they had a really bad reputation because nobody knew how to do it.
Oh,
And they didn't know how to
okay.
do it correctly anyway. Let's put it
Right.
that way. And now it's become under regulation, which makes it a
Mhm.
lot easier to follow. And also, anybody who's getting a reverse mortgage has to undergo education. They have to take a class
Mhm.
so that they know what they're getting into and know how to manage it.
Now, if somebody comes to you, Cynthia, as a realtor and says, "I want to do this," or maybe Clark, and I forget the other fellow's name that was here from the mortgage company,
Carl, yeah,
Carl.
Carl.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, that I was always told the most important thing is to make sure your kids are on board with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Because uh, and the thing is I think it was Harlan who said that
Mhm.
there those things he's actually done it himself, and he takes the entire family on a trip every year, and
Okay.
they're fine with it. If but I think he also makes sure he pays some sort of payment.
Mhm.
But let me just say this, even though there's a whole lot of stigma that was attached to these HECM, the reverse mortgages.
Mhm.
And now it's kind of going away because now with FHA saying that, it's no longer a financial risk and things like that. But I will tell you this, the issue that people are still having is the fact that it's not being properly handled either by the lender. And so don't con if somebody calls you and offers you a reverse mortgage over the phone, you've
Oh,
never heard of them before, don't do it.
yeah, I think that's a good rule of thumb on a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think too, um, with these professionals that you can trust, they're fully trained regarding all the laws and regulations
Mhm.
surrounding the HECMs, and just don't just yeah. And I think that's the main thing is always use a professional, always find ask advice of your team members, like your attorney, your financial advisor, your realtor. Get them
Mm.
involved and see how you can actually use a product to
Yeah.
your advantage. And there's a warning here, okay? If
Mhm.
AARP, okay, there's a new class action lawsuit, and it alleges that reverse mortgage companies charged thousands of dollars in illegal fees to older homeowners.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. And
Wow.
there is an alternative. You can be AARP, but there's also another
A-
one,
AMAC. AMAC.
AMAC,
Yeah.
mature individuals or whatever
Right.
it's called. What's it called? The
It's
AMAC?
a mature American citizens, the Association of Mature
Sure.
American
That's
Citizens. Yeah.
it. There you go. And and I think it was the CEO of that of AARP that broke off and had this alternative.
Hmm.
But AARP is reporting that there's this class action lawsuit on reverse mortgage companies, and so yeah, and so you're looking at a whole different world that shouldn't even none of this should be happening. But who are these predators, let's call them,
Hmm.
okay, are they're targeting people over the age of 62
Hmm.
because we're from a different generation. We're a little, we trust more.
Do we
Yeah.
still? I mean,
I don't
after
know if
all the
we
Bernie
do.
Madoffs and all the pyramid schemes, I mean,
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people my age, and they don't they don't trust their own family members anymore,
Yeah, well,
because there have been so many. Cynthia, I mean, you and I have seen
yeah.
these, and your industry has been pretty good with it. I mean, I don't know. I'll keep my eyes open for this AARP class action suit because sometimes
Mhm.
these are not frivolous, but people who may have misunderstood, and
Yeah.
that's why it's important to deal with a legit broker because
Absolutely.
they're going to be so transparent, right?
Yeah.
Like Harlan they're
And
going to be
Carl,
so
they're
upfront about it.
absolutely, they totally will. And I know, and there's others. There's John too. Remember I had
Oh yeah,
John
yeah,
on.
yeah.
And when that's their ball game, that's their bailiwick. That's what they do
Mhm.
best. Okay. And that their reputation stands on it. You can go to their office and hold them accountable,
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
kinds of things, but you can't do that for internet lenders. And so just saying. But
They've got
these,
4.5 stars on Google ad reviews, and
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. By the way, if you want to hear some of these recordings, go to HECMUSA.com and click on podcast and look
Hmm.
at listen to the rest of them.
Yeah,
But
that one was only a couple of weeks ago. You
that
had
was only a
already looked
couple of
at.
weeks
Yeah.
ago. Yeah. And basically the complaint says that these defendants routinely charged way more fees
Okay.
than prohibit and they were it was they were violating the law because they're not supposed to do that, unlawfully charging thousands of dollars. One person was it was like 14 grand.
What? Oh my
Yes.
gosh. All right.
I mean, we're
Well,
not just talking $150. We're talking
yeah.
14,000. Another one was charged 17,000.
Is it
Uh,
because they're an unfamiliar product and people don't, know? I mean, or
yeah,
they think it's, something mystically different than just the regular mortgage that they got to buy the
pr
home in the first place?
probably. I think it
Mhm.
has a lot to do with it. But at the same time, if they're not getting the education, uh, and they're being, exponentially charged, and all
Mhm.
these fees were disputed. You just it's they're feeling like they're losing their homes,
Sure.
and because it's all their equity is being eaten up, and no one told them that that's what was going to happen if they
Mhm.
didn't make a
Mhm.
mortgage payment.
Yeah.
you know so those are a lot of things that are going on. You got to be really, really careful these
Mhm.
days, and and honestly, I think we'll try and keep up on something like this, uh, but again, they're safer than they ever have been. You just have to get the right professional to work with.
Right. And
Yeah.
if somebody is like, "Oh, it's reverse mortgages are us," that might be a red flag. If you're talking about a mortgage company that's does all the different kinds of mortgages,
Mhm.
then
Yep.
you're like, okay, there is already a better chance that they're not something fly by night, correct?
Well, exactly, exactly. And so, and speaking of these predatory things, okay,
Hmm.
I just there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. That if you are a senior, okay, and you are on a fixed income,
Hmm.
you could end up being the victim of property tax squeeze.
Wow.
Now, that's
Yeah.
completely different. That has
Right.
nothing to do with the loan. It has everything to do with the fact that a fact of life that your property values have increased in such a
Mhm.
way that the property taxes have are basically moving you out. You know,
Right. They're beyond what you can bring
that,
in your
that's right.
retirement.
Yeah. And those rising values are basically, if you're a house rich, I call
Mhm.
house rich or house poor, whichever one you want to talk about it. But if you're house rich and cash poor,
Yeah.
those retirees, hey, it's essential. Never, you might never be able to retire
Hmm.
if you're staying in the same house, which is another reason why people downsize.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, there are
Hmm.
obviously the health reasons for it as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, that phrase "house rich, cash poor" I've heard so many times
Yeah.
because you
Hmm.
can't, you can't. And I think that was the first time I heard it was in the discussion. The first time I heard of a reverse mortgage
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
this gave you the opportunity to take the value of your home to the grocery store with you.
That's exactly right. That's right. It's like writing a check,
Hmm.
directly from your equity. Is that always good? Not always. Is your family going to like that? Not always.
Hmm.
But if you've got if your son or daughter is in a high paying professional job, they're going to just want what's best for you.
Yeah. Well,
You
and
know.
like I said, this is why you want to talk to kids,
Yeah.
your kids, because if they're set up and they've started their lives and they've got their homes and they've got families set up already,
Yeah.
then inheriting your home is just going to kind of add to their burden. Like you were mentioning, Ellen and her three post-it notes. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, if you've got a couple of siblings, and now it's like, well, now what do we do with mom and dad's house?
Yeah.
It becomes prickly if they're trying to sell it and who runs point on selling it. It's just one more thing that creates friction.
That it does. It absolutely does. And there are property taxes that have quadrupled.
Are there
And if
counties, I guess you have to
yeah.
know this, are there counties that give you a discount if you're a senior? I know my mother-in-law in New York,
Hmm.
Suffolk County, New York,
Hmm.
they actually cut your property taxes in half if you're over 65. Um,
You have a bunch of red tape to go through,
okay.
and what like you can't make but so much money.
Hmm.
And you have to prove all of that. There are discounts. There's even discounts for veterans, and we've been over this many moons ago as well, on the reality of real estate.
Yep.
And so there are possibilities if you are struggling. Just you contact your county, because each county is different,
Hmm. Okay.
and just contact your county and find out whether or not you qualify. You have to qualify, just like with any other program.
Yeah.
You would, like, if you were trying to buy your first-time home buyer, let's say,
Hmm.
and you wanted to uh, get a some sort of government grant for the first-time home buyer. You can't just It's not just willy-nilly. You
Hmm.
have to
Right.
qualify. You have to show that you only make this much. You have to prove it,
Hmm.
and that sort of thing. So, I would say that if you're looking at property values increasing, let me just say this. If even in a down market, if your property values have not been increasing, let's say during the Great Recession, what will increase is the tax rate.
Yeah.
Because either way,
Hmm.
they have to make that money to fund schools and fund infrastructure and public services, and sometimes these seniors, who bought their homes, 30, 40 years ago,
Hmm.
are now facing these tax bills that are based on current market values, not the modest prices that they originally paid.
Right.
Okay. And so you can have a retired couple on Social Security, small pension, whatever, and their home, their income hasn't budged in
Right.
many years.
Yep.
Okay. But what has budged? The cost of living.
Yes.
The your
Yep.
your, your property taxes, everything's been adjusted for inflation, but your pay
Hmm.
hasn't been. So yeah. So if you think about it, you got a $150,000 home that you bought in 1995, and today in 2026, it's now assessed at 600,000 in some hot markets.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Hello.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's huge. So yeah, if you are in that kind of position, contact your county, and hopefully you would be able to qualify for some tax relief on that.
Yeah, it
Um,
really it,
yeah.
it drives a lot of people out. And I've talked to people who say, "Oh, that's intentional. They want the seniors moving out of their houses and they want to see it moving." That's why I like this other way of doing it, where you say, "Listen, if you sell your home, no capital gains tax."
Hmm.
I'd like to see capital gains tax go away, but I'll save that for my show. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is not Cynthia's view. That was just me spouting off. But
Well, I'll tell you, the capital gains tax reform is coming. And I am hoping that we can go over that in the next few shows.
oh, good.
Yeah, we will, and at least I plan to. And and I'm thinking. Here's the thing: is when was Bill Clinton in office?
1992 to 2000.
So what is the property? What was if you're still living in the same house in 1992? What is your property value now?
Man,
Right. See?
man.
And then on top of that, and we'll have to go through the whole thing during the capital gains show when we talk about that
Because
one.
is it really,
Uh,
again, I think that was the argument somebody brought to me is like, you invest in a company and the company grows. Okay, well, that could be a gain. But I mean, your
yeah, it
house
is.
is just your house. I mean, it's your dwelling. And to treat it
Yeah,
like you did it, I'm going to make money on this, you're living in
yeah.
it.
Well, get this. So, speaking of taxes and so forth, you got to like my family owns A to D appliances, okay?
Hmm.
And I can tell you, we have to pay taxes on the appliances that we already bought. That's
Right.
sitting there. It hasn't been sold yet, but we got to pay taxes on it.
Right. Yeah. Personal. Well, I guess business property taxes, right? Yeah. Anything like that.
Yeah,
All you're and they want to expand all these things. Like if you have to get a
yes, they do.
storage shed, you're going to have to pay sales tax on the rental of
That's right.
storage facility, and
Yeah.
you name it.
Eh,
And warehousing for a business that can be a, oh gosh, I hadn't
Yeah.
even thought about that
I
door there trying to
just,
take it out.
yeah, it's pretty awful, some of the taxes and all the things that I've seen in these taxes. It just I'm sitting here thinking how is the average business person going to be able to survive
Hmm.
this? Because I can tell you one thing, I'll never be able to retire. I just
Well,
never
luckily
will.
you're spry and young, and well, I mean that's part of it is if you love what you're doing. I think a lot of people, like yourself, like me, who are doing what they love to do anyway. I mean, we can't even
Yeah.
envision a day of not getting up and doing stuff, but
Yeah, yeah. Because I often wondered, which came first, the chicken or the egg. My grandfather had Alzheimer's for 14 years, and he was a mortgage. He was a real estate broker in Maryland,
mm,
and I was like, but he retired, like when he was like 50, and so
bless
that's
them.
pretty early, right?
Hmm.
And so I thought, well, maybe I'm not going to do that because if that's what caused,
I don't know.
his,
I
I
watched
don't
my
know.
dad and my father-in-law both kind of they started to lose altitude as soon as they
Yeah.
stopped having something to do every day, and I just don't want to be that. But
I'm not going to be that, I don't think. As long as, I'll do it as long as I'm healthy, as long as God wills it.
amen to that.
Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate everybody and go to findhomesusa.com and scoot over to the podcast and listen to us. And also, there's a tremendous amount of information there, blogs and
Mhm.
everything that you might need about, things that you wouldn't think about in regards to buying or selling a home. So,
Great stuff. Great
hmm.
resource. It's like a library. Cynthia, you have an awesome Saturday, and we will talk to you again next Saturday morning.
You too, Joe.